Okay, go ahead.
Gonna call her good?
Yep.
All right. Okay, let's start this meeting. Let's do roll call. Margot Knipple, I am here. Tyler Lane.
Here.
Laura Kelly.
Here.
Gary Nelson.
Here.
Tommy Smith.
Here.
Jamie Lara. She's not joining us. She's not.
No.
And Verna Tucker.
Here.
Awesome.
So Jamie Lara has submitted her resignation.
Okay.
We'll be filling a vacancy. She indicated to me that she's very busy with stuff going on right now. And she couldn't give a full commitment to this group, but she enjoyed serving and just look forward to filling it up. So if you know anybody out there, there's a couple people we have in mind, but we'd rather hear from the public too. Board of Supervisors.
That's interesting. I will say that I believe a former member of this board is going to be moving out to the county,
Okay.
and he did, Arlen.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Arlen did say, I think he and his wife are going to be moving, and he did kind of express some interest in possibly working with the board again.
Good.
So if that's a possibility. We could maybe look into that, but
We'll be looking at filling that sometime right after the first of the year. So
Okay.
For
No
the
worries.
next couple months. But,
And I think that's maybe in that same time frame of when he'd be moving, so.
okay. Yeah, if you see him, tell me an application and do an application.
Awesome. All right. Review and approval of the minutes for the October 11th, 2022 meeting. Everybody get the opportunity to propose? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
All right. Do I have a second? Okay. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. All right, before we jump into new business, I just want to say to the board, thank you for our last meeting. I thought that was one of our most productive meetings in this whole process with this transportation, and not because you're with this whole transportation corridor review thing. I think our last meeting was productive, and I love having people on the board with ideas and that aren't afraid to share their ideas and everything. Actually, right now, I think we have a very competent board. But I really thought that was productive with the map and everything. So thank you all for that. Appreciate it.
Let's look forward to building on that,
Yeah.
as we move forward. So it was a very good meeting, I think.
So new business,
So
reviewing and discussing comprehensive plan. which I-
wait, can we handle just can we handle new business separately? If there's no new business by the board, then I just want to talk about a few projects that are going on in the county real quick, because it kind of impacts our study, so to speak. So we're in the process of reviewing 3 petitions. The first one is a 200-foot tall proposed Verizon tower that's located a mile northeast of Callender. That's pretty much. Sorry, Allison.
What you do?
It's the Spyrich property.
What's the address?
Oh, just go to. Take a look at the map. Yes, right, the map. Spirit. So while she's pulling up, Verizon got approval for this 200-foot guide wire tower over 2 years ago, and the permit expired, or they just didn't construct them, and the permit expired. So they're going to be coming back to the BOA. They just actually got an email this afternoon stating that they've got everything squared away. There's no objections to that tower. I just want to show you what the region is. So it's just right here. So that's going to fill a void that Verizon has. So then obviously there's room on that tower for other carriers. So there's other voids by US Cellular or whatever it may be to be able to co-locate on that tower. So.
You didn't have any public objection to it when it was permitted before?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so now we're going to go down to gallery. We have a petition that has been signed off this week. the applicant. For a proposed 10,000 square foot Dollar General store. And so, yeah, there you go, Allison. That's exactly the property there. I'll kind of move that over and blow it up. So this is at the northeast corner of the intersection of 175 and 4th Street. So it's a rezoning from A2 to C1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be at the Gallery Municipal Utilities Board meeting tomorrow night regarding water and sewer availability. So this is very close to the city limits of Gallery. And I had a short, very short discussion with Mark Campbell. And Mark Campbell would love to see this go into the city of Gallery. I don't know what their annexation agreements are there. And that's what my job is to kind of coordinate all that and find out what their rules and talk to their city attorney to find out if there are any what their requirements are on water and sewer hookup and annexation. So the way it stands right now, they would hook up to Xenia Water and provide their individual sewage septic system on the property. Again, it's 10,000 square feet. After the Gallery Municipal Utilities Board meeting tomorrow night, again in front of the City of Gallery City Council to discuss this with them to make sure they're okay with the county moving forward processing this petition, and then it's not going to get annexed. So we want to have that cooperation between the county and the city to make sure, you know, who's going to process this and who's going to move forward. So I have a feeling that Dollar General's done their due diligence, big company, and a lot of attorneys, I would think they've done there, but you just never know. So
Tried several times in several different lots.
everything, yeah,
In and around somewhere, so.
yeah.
Sure.
So I mean, I don't know what they. So it's right. This side of the over there. So yeah, I mean, they have a requirement to be directly adjacent, but we've seen a lot of ordinances and policy requirements in cities and counties. There's a mandatory annexation if we're going to develop right next door, but lots of times it's dependent upon the location of city sewer and city water and where it's at. And so again, I don't know. I'm sorry, it's a certain distance. Don't require them to annex it and so forth. So that's fine.
Does Dollar General want to have the city annex them in, or they prefer not to? Because I know from different council members and other city people, I know that they want to have them annexed in because they want the tax rate.
Yeah, sure.
So that could go a little bit of both ways, but I wasn't sure what.
Yeah, and I don't know if the city council is thinking if they want to handle a political debacle either. You know, I mean, it's, you know, it will be in front of the city council, they want the county to handle it. Again, I think it comes all down to, you know, the requirements on annexation, whether or not they're going to be required to annex it based on its location and its proximity to water and sewer. So.
As far as water, I think they would probably prefer them go on to Xenia because the city is already having a well issue.
Okay.
So that probably would be the anyways for having them go on to Xenia. I don't know if that makes any difference with inflation.
They're buying this land or they looking to buy?
So they're going to purchase not the entire parcel. This is 10 acres, I believe, it's 10.02. They're proposing to carve out 2 acres right in this area. So it's going to require a plat of this 40 acres. Yeah, with access coming off of 4th Street.
I was just gonna say, hopefully they're not coming off of 175. Their entrance is gonna be off of 4th Street.
4th Street, yeah.
That's currently zoned as.
A2. In the county, yeah.
So the rest of that, then Brandon John is going to continue to own the rest of that property then?
Right. Yeah, 38 or 8 acres. Yeah. He came in, I met with him on Monday. He didn't sign off on the application, and he wanted to meet with staff first before the discussion, and he signed off on it. So I can review process. We'll be finishing up our staff review this week and giving them comments to our general and meeting with the city of Gallery, and still going through that whole review process before it comes to you guys. So if it gets that far.
They can probably move, but does he have, what's he, so are we just going to rezone just the 2 acres, or are we rezoning the whole?
2 acres. Yeah, the 2 acres only, because it has a site plan.
So it's not considered in the spot zone?
Let's get into that again.
I know, I'm just like.
I mean, again, we just found out along the corridor here, you know, in its location along Gallery, that this is a driveway place for commercial uses. So,
I mean, because we tried to do, you know, because our Gallery City sign, you know, digital sign, we wanted to originally have it, and I mean, that was my whole baby doing that whole thing. We wanted it over there. And we couldn't do it, and of course they said, oh, no, that's spot zone, we can't do it there, so we had to go down into the little valley onto the golf course where it's like really not that visible. And so I'm like, wait a minute.
You know, if this does come back to us, then the city do, you know, have their conversation, have their meeting like that. And then if it does come back to us, those are questions that we can talk about. Like you said, when you look at what we identified on this map, it would only make sense to, for future development, you know, look at that area.
Well, because I'm wondering what Brandon's gonna do with the rest of those acres, because he has the inline service in Calendar. So is he planning on doing something that, why not just rezone that whole thing and not have to come back and look at it then later? That what's the potential for it?
we have better control to the rezoning process with conditions of approval requiring a better product. So that's not to bite off more than we can chew right now. We can just focus on that 2 acres, make sure, and then when he comes in, that's a separate one, and making sure aesthetically. Otherwise, you're going to give him entitlements, commercial general entitlements on that whole thing. And there's an array of uses, and there's some of them I don't think are really too desirable. Some of them, say he would do it, but he could sell it tomorrow, and also someone may want to come here and do a lumber yard that has a lot of exterior storage, and you don't have the look along there. Not to say we could mitigate it.
Just having his inline there would not be desirable.
So when you
Right,
say
so along
inline,
the entrance.
an inline is what type of business? I'm sorry.
Truck repair, semi repair. Yeah.
I mean, that's different.
So that's why I'm
That's
like-
probably a permitted use in the commercial general.
Right.
And that's why we don't want to give them those entitlements right away. We'd rather have to go through here, then look at what he's proposing and then aesthetically screen things, mitigate
Right.
things, require things to be indoors. Rather than.
That's why I was hoping that maybe he had told you what his plans were for the rest of that, because it's like, that's what we had been hearing way before Dollar General, was that he was gonna move there, and I'm like, oh, that is the worst thing, because we have this really nice golf course on the other side, and then you got that, and that's your main entrance coming into town, and you're like, are you kidding me? We're gonna have this ugly mechanics shop that, ugh.
And that could be another argument too, for whether or not the city would want to annex too.
Mhm. Yeah,
I mean,
Well,
it's something that they need to
You're bringing up some really good ideas and thoughts here, because you're talking about this kind of gateway in the city, maybe something we can make that, do at that corner aesthetically, landscape wise.
right.
So, it's a condition of approval and have them work with us on that. So there's some things that, as long as they're agreeable to it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
but if the city were to annex it, and whatever their requirements are, then they could, that might dictate a completely different set of opportunities
yeah.
in the area.
Right.
Yeah. Do you know when you're going to be meeting with the council?
Don't know yet. One step at a time, so the municipal water district. So, and then
Government municipal utilities.
utilities, yeah. See what happens at that meeting, and then,
Because I found it quite interesting that at the Development Commission, I did tell the Development Commission about the possibility of that's for the Dollar General. This just tells you how good the development commission is good about not just spreading the word, because it's public knowledge, it can be told. I am telling you, it has not made it to the coffee shop, and I'm like, whoa. I am shocked. So, it's like, I keep waiting, and I keep waiting. That's good, because it's like, I wanted the development commission to know about it, but I really didn't want coffee shops to know about it. And so that's good, but I'm just really shocked.
So the city, if the city were to annex it, and then it's not, you know, not in our, I hate to say jurisdiction, because that's just, doesn't sound good. Depending on what they have for their zoning, what's allowed in their commercial zones may be different from what's allowed in our commercial zone.
Right.
And hopefully at meetings, they'll look at those things. And when you talk about aesthetically pleasing developments, maybe the city has a more stringent set of rules for that.
I would. It's not a very active planning and zoning.
I think it depends on one, something, to me, they would start taking that.
Yeah.
And because we start letting other things in, then they're gonna get upset and we have like, they don't wanna take over. So it'd almost be nice if they take it now.
I think that's what Mark is trying to work on, what he's gonna do, so, legally.
Yeah, it's coming someday.
Well, you're exactly, that's what I told Mark, I said, it's gonna come, you know, so you might as well just, yeah.
And that's just it, we're like, it's then the opportunity to, where we're looking at our commercial zones and we're looking at the whole county, looking at our commercial zones, and Gower has the opportunity to say, hey, we're very specific about what we want in our commercial zones, and especially at the gateway, you know, so that would be, I guess, a reason to go.
Do they
ahead
have an
and-
industrial park there?
Not that I'm aware of.
But it's big.
Yeah. If there's anything that's even close to it, it's more onto the north side of town.
We bring all those things up.
No, oh, yeah.
It's a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, I know.
mean, it's a lot of different, the
Yeah.
differences between does the county do it or does the city do it, and certainly have a little more control.
Right.
Over what they can do, even if they had to do some changes to their own zone.
Exactly.
It's good to share this stuff with you, I mean,
Right.
because, yeah, it's, you know, you guys are very important
Well,
in
that's
the
like,
community, so yes.
I'd like to know when, because like, you know, I'm outside the city limits, so I don't go to the city council, but there's some things that I'm gonna be bringing to the city council here in the future. But I don't know where they're going, and I'm like, go to
So,
the meetings.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if our next planning is over, we're meeting in December, you know. You want an update, just ask them.
Yeah, 'cause I think it was second or third Monday is when we talk. I can't remember.
Because I know that's one of the big things when I was talking to the board, and I think you and Margo, and maybe John Anderson, they wanted the plan to really work closely with these cities and making sure that everything was cooperatively, you know, worked out before we move forward with things and thought through before we started, you know.
Because I know there's a lot of town people that are very kind of, a lot of town people that are really
Oh, yeah.
kind of unhappy with the council,
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of things. Yeah, but I know that.
Well, you know, I mean, you're a good resource, you and Allison are good resources for them. Because of questions like that to use, and that's why I've always felt that, yeah, the planning and zoning needs to be working with each of the individual towns. Because of that reason, and because of the ideas and that you might have, that maybe a council that doesn't have as many experienced members or, you know, aren't gonna think about those kinds of things. And, I mean, we're all working for the same thing, we're all working for
Yeah.
the good of Webster County.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, anything more on that? Otherwise, we'll,
Just keep us updated.
oh, that, I have no idea what that's right away in there, you know that. It's got- I mean,
county right away.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Crossing.
when it has no information available, it's county property. Whether it's right away, I don't know, that's the question. I mean, it appears that it's right away, because it's all.
County buildings. It's just kind of, it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah, when I saw that too. It's
Mhm.
just like, Okay, so something that'll be coming to you next month, Nick Cochran with the Johnson Law Firm has submitted a text amendment to the zoning ordinance to allow what's called the event venues in the agricultural zoning districts by conditional use permit. It's not outright by permit, it's by conditional use permit, which is the way to go. So, since I've been here, there's been some demand for event facilities, for people wanting to host weddings or receptions in the rural area and their setting and so forth. And there's nothing in the code. I've had to kind of steer them away, even though there might be a couple out there that I hear rumblings on that, you know, people do receptions at inside of barns or accessory buildings. So looking at that text that they proposed, and like I said, it's A1, A2, and the types of venues they want to do, they're very family oriented and they're specific. I think we want to, you know, for me to get behind it from the staff, you know, you guys will make your recommendation to the board of supervisors is to make sure that it's on a property with a residence or a single family home, because I don't think we want to put something out there to stand alone and also someday it turns into a bar or something, you know. So to have that presence of a single family home or a caretaker there that's going to take care of the building, and you know, so they'll have some pride in the property and stuff, and so forth. So there's a lot of issues that come, you know, with parking and you know how that all gets addressed. Yeah, we'll have to. It'd be a conditional use public hearing. We have to provide a site plan laying out where it's going to be located on the property, the parking, hours of operation for the events, you know, how they're going to mitigate noise, dust, all kinds of things. I mean, you could be on a gravel road and, you know, making sure that they have appropriate dust down. And so everyone's going to be unique or different, you know, in terms of where they're located. So some may require, you know, in terms of the types of conditions that would be tied to it to safeguard the adjacent properties. So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure you know, you're aware of that.
So there would be public hearing.
Yeah, so the Board of Adjustments, they hear conditional use permits, they make the final decision on that.
And they'll get, the neighbors would get there.
Yeah, within 500 feet. Yeah. So,
When you were researching that, do you see anything in our current that you think needs to change or adapt for those? In our current zoning, our descriptions?
I mean, there'll be a definition. I mean,
Do you think our definition is good enough?
no, that's what they'll be providing a new definition for that, and we'll be identifying that use in the A1, A2 zoning districts of the conditional use. And, yeah,
As long as it's listed as a conditional use, there really isn't a lot of need to do a lot of different definition to it, is there?
I mean, we have to define the use, and you'll see when it comes to you, I don't have the text amendment here. The use is real specific on the types of events that could happen.
Basically, so that it does not become a bar.
Or like a concert, yeah, a concert venue where they're having concerts all the time, you know, so. Yeah, inside, and you might have the string quartet outside. That's about it, you know.
But that's. Because you say, oh,
That sounds very, very small. But then you do, how about a political convention? Or how about a concert?
it turns into an amphitheater.
It turns
Well,
into,
so-
the Calvin's are gonna get together, we're
That's what
gonna do
you-
a big event.
That's very, again, so the conditional use permit, they nail that down, or be specific about property mix and the actual types of events they can have. You're right, instead, you know, list out, these are the types, and they may even limit it to a certain number, or, you know, I mean, it's all, you know, everyone's unique and different because it's location. I mean, some may warrant bigger crowds. I mean, some may, you know, depending on what size of building they have there, or want to have there, and so.
And if it's popular, wedding venue, they could be every single weekend, 2 nights a week, you know, or anything, Saturday night or Saturday or Sunday. So, because I know like the one that's in just north of Boone, north and west of Boone, they're booked solid all the time.
Yeah.
And it's on a gravel road. And nobody lives there. And we used to live there.
Well, when you think about the different areas of the county that kind of already have that, we talked, Jeff and I talked about this a little bit when I hopped into the courthouse here. We talked about, the winery, north of town.
They're really expanding there.
Yeah, and that was all kind of put in.
Based around the agricultural production of grapes and.
Yeah.
And how that,
And so that's, they're expanding and that type of thing, but yeah, they went in under ag exemption. I don't know.
I mean, at some point though, when does he get big enough that?
It's not ag, yeah,
it's
right.
not ag?
Well,
I mean, he has money there, it was. So when does he need to pay the different tax bracket?
Yeah. And that's, I'm just going about our definitions. Yeah, what is our definition gonna be? Because I don't feel like this guy should just be good for us, right? If that's what he's doing. And I have a neighbor who has had weddings and things like that. They've got a barn fixed up and everything, and if it was during a certain time of year and there's a bunch of cars parked out on gravel road, I'm not trying to get by with a combine or something like that, that could be an issue. And those are the kinds of things that, that's,
I think that's something that's going to become more and more popular as wedding venues are harder to find and people are wanting that more unique venue versus just your everyday church and operative place, that kind of stuff.
but making that definition, getting away from, I'm gonna use the ag exemption because I believe it's that Mr. Pearson was doing because.
Yeah.
His farm, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think of the winery and that kind of thing. That-
Yeah.
That we're gonna run into
You're gonna-
people coming in and saying, well, how come he gets to do it and I can't?
Mhm.
And making sure our ducks are all in a row,
Because I think it's, more and more of them.
About for the tax savings, but at the same time,
Yeah,
how long do you get away with it?
yeah.
Right.
I mean, and if you're promoting it, and I don't know if that has anything to do with it, there's a difference between somebody coming to you and saying, I want to rent your barn or whatever for a wedding or an event. But if you're actively promoting, and the winery is actively promoting
Then it becomes
concerts and
commercial.
things like that,
It's definitely
is that the
commercial.
change in the
Yeah.
definition?
Yeah.
Because ag does not promote. I mean, this is where you sit there and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, if you're an ag related service, then you're not really promoting it commercially versus as a wedding or an event center, you're promoting it commercially, say, hey, come here, come here, come here. And you're immediately changing over to commercial versus ag.
Seaport's had 500 people. So
Oh, yeah.
Really? 500?
Yeah.
Where did they park?
they're
Yeah.
gonna, because on that road, there's no parking. So it's-
Yeah.
How is
And-
the apple orchard?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I would just be curious to compare those two.
Yeah.
I think there are some comparisons.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and they've had to
pull it
continue.
up.
Yeah, I should be, we have rough zoning
That's
on here,
interesting.
but I should be able to pull that
Those were all the, you think about what's already existing,
Mhm.
and the apple orchard has probably been, they've been in business prior to that. And so there's that, I'm just guessing,
Yeah.
but if they were
just
to
change
expand
hands.
or
Yeah.
change hands, yeah, it could change hands, so.
out. Where's the apple orchard?
Is that
Yeah.
your-
Mhm.
Yeah, they switched. to this.
Dookies have it now.
What did we share with that?
Share.
Where's it? Is it the apple orchard?
Should be further north.
Orchard Road.
Right side of the river.
Up here.
So as of 2021, what's that dark orange?
A2, the green's A2.
The green's A2, but right here where this is, I don't remember what the dark orange is.
Yeah, that's pushed over. Oh, wait, yeah. Yeah, A2 and That's residential. It's either R2 or R3. It's probably R.
I think it's R3, R2 is purple.
Yeah. This isn't an official zoning map, so GIS, that's why I don't really use this one.
Well, yeah, because this one, the lighter yellow over here, A1, I believe this is R3,
R3,
A2,
A2 is the green.
A1,
That's
commercial,
commercial, yeah.
city limits. Yes.
Well, that's a good point. That's something to think about. I guess when you talk about this coming to you, that this person has filed for this, it's another one of those instances where I hear and I see the petition in front of me, but what about everything else? You know? Yeah.
There would be. To make things a fair playing.
Exactly the same all the way across, so that we're given that same response every time.
Because like, and this is, I mean, it's no longer in existence, but the old Bohemian Hall.
That's one thing I brought up to Jeff was Bohemian Hall.
So it's like, how that was even, and that probably
Prior to zoning.
way prior to zoning and
Yeah,
now
way.
it's long gone.
But there were times with Bohemian Hall where there were a lot of vehicles, and stuff, a lot of traffic.
Yep,
And that was prior to 4line 20.
right.
And just,
And all the cars would go up and down that road. We were one of them.
Yeah.
And it was like, dang.
Yeah.
So.
So add that to your list.
Yeah.
All right, so, okay, that's enough of the project update, so to speak. And then we can move on to the agenda, Marco. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about.
I've got my own stuff going on. I'm trying to deal with anything planning and zoning right now. I do get it.
Yeah, it's very informal, right? Exactly. Yeah, the book, yeah. So if I misunderstood, I mean, what I did is I went back and looked at our goal policies and objectives, land uses and so forth. And I guess, one thing that I've talked about was on page, we can start on page 10, with this compatibility matrix. And so when we look at what we're trying to accomplish with MSA and our corridor study, by the end of the day, we're going to have either, 1, 2, or 3 overlays or whatever it may be established. And then they're going to be, and how I see it in my eyes is that we'll have zoning overlay district requirements on the permitted uses and the aesthetics and what everything's going to look like along these corridors. And then basically they'll be compatible with every single land use. So that we won't necessarily have to change those land uses. We'll identify, just like we did on the map here, and our official maps will identify these as overlay districts, and whether they be overlay districts A, B, or C, and then we'll have our own zoning district requirements A, B, and C. And, maybe some of these are more industrial in nature as opposed to commercial, or the types of uses we're looking at in certain areas. So that all has to be taken a look at. And as we're, getting the public input. And Margot, just so you know, I went over the messenger on Monday and met with Bill Shea, and he is going to get this in the paper this week, at least a couple of times. We were able to get the gallery and the Dayton newspaper so that they can, so we can get more input, survey input. That's what we're after to help us with this study. So one other thing we're going to have to really focus on, we didn't really talk about, because it was a really good meeting, Gary. Again, you missed out, sorry. is the depth of these overlays, and whether or not, in my mind, I think some of them are rather extensive, but we have to narrow it down based on everyone's going to be a little bit different in terms of what's going on along there and where those property boundaries are and so forth, and how deep we want to go on the types of uses, commercial uses and so forth. So,
And I guess, Gary, that's why I wanted to make sure that this isn't right.
oh, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Make sure that we got that maybe into the messenger so that, landowners would have the opportunity to see those shaded areas and maybe say, hey, what's going on here? And maybe come in and talk to Jeff and maybe get some ideas from them too on what they would like to see for their, in that area. Or, people that are traveling that way, and that always take a certain road, and maybe get some input from them too.
Oh, what was that? Remember, yeah, you're right. You're talking about
I
half
think we were talking for-
and whether, which I think maybe in some areas it might be okay, but I think it's way too much, yeah. A quarter mile, maybe even less. I mean, lots of times I've seen 1,000 feet or, even 500 feet, in terms of depth.
And it may be
But-
different by each one of those individual areas by what is in that area. To say, and that's, I think, what happened with JO and Associates, is that JO and Associates, when they put together our last comp plan, they just blocked everything out without looking at what's actually going on there on that property. You guys brought up the fact that some of those areas are, trees and it's just not even compatible, so there's no point changing that over. So try to get a little more specific with the sites, by what the land actually is.
I really think the areas that you guys identified were really good areas, and I think a little spot on with what, areas that need to be analyzed and looked at. And, who knows, we may end up dropping one or two of those off, but I mean, I think, it's a real, all those areas make total sense on, future planning and where the demand for services may or may be in the future, or where it is right now, so.
Did you have an opportunity to share that with supervisors?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Was there any comment, feedback?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
They're letting everything be funneled to you guys, so. So, yeah, as the survey work gets out there, and I'll be in touch with MSA tomorrow, and we'll come back in December. We'll regroup, and most likely we'll be going over some results and then strategizing more on these overlay districts and the look of these corridors and so forth. So, yeah, like I said, what I did is I just put some goals, policies, and objectives based on our land use and together. And is there something else?
Did I panic you because I can't?
I'm reading off the meeting, Margaret and I, we're not on the same page, I guess. Margaret was trying to tell me, what did you wanted me to come up with? Goals, policies, and objectives for a certain land use. So, you want to call this a certain land use along these corridors?
Well, when we were talking about at our last meeting, we were talking about going through the goals, policies, and objectives. I guess in my mind, I was thinking in those specific areas. I guess that was what I was thinking.
Okay.
And when I got this packet in the mail, to me, this looked like full comp plan. And so I stopped in and talked with Jeff and said, did I misunderstand, or are we not on the same page, or what happened here? It was like, wait, what happened? I guess I thought that's what we were just going to talk about was our goals, policies, and objectives for these areas.
So, yeah, okay, that's okay. I understand you now. So again, I think we'll need to come out of this after all the survey work is to identify what types of overlays. If this is all one overlay, just with the same criteria, are we going to break this down into 1 or 2 or 3 different overlays based on the types of uses, whether it's a mix of commercial or industrial? Everyone, I think we have some unique areas here. Some are definitely going to be more commercial, some are going to be more geared to maybe industrial and that type of look. And then obviously that overlay district, when it's put together in terms of the format for text amendment, we'll talk about its purpose. And that's what we're getting into of that overlay and what its intent and its goal. The consultant will put all that together and what the general purpose of that overlay is and what needs to get accomplished. So that still needs to get fleshed out and will. I mean,
The sticky notes are scary.
I mean, I would love to. I could work on the consultant. Public process and
And
then they can critique their work, you know, and add to it, take from it, delete it.
And that was one of the things that I brought up to Jeff when I stopped and talked to him, is that the information that he sent us from our current, on the second page of the prioritized goals and policies, at each one of those points, there's a number by each one, and what that was is the number of responses that they got from the public input. And I said, you know, for us to sit down and go through this and try to make any changes or everything, I feel like I don't have any public input, you know?
Yeah.
So I just didn't feel comfortable, although, I mean, the one thing that surprised me is that this, which is our current, was actually smaller than this.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping that this will get condensed,
Mhm.
because this was a lot of information.
Mhm.
And you know, I mean, I don't want anybody to get on our comprehensive plan on our website or anything and look and go, oh my gosh, I might be here for 20 minutes reading this. What does this county want to do? I want to know it now, you know, because I want to know if I want to bring my business there. And I want it to be quick, easy. They're good points.
Yeah, and you're right, that all needs to be a workshop eventually.
Yeah.
And you never get the public to the table, you know, see people. You know, in-depth discussion.
Just since we're looking at it here now, on this packet that you sent for the transitional agricultural area. I didn't care for this one sentence. The development proposed in this designation that is adjacent to a community shall be encouraged to be annexed into the neighboring city in order for an urban level of service to be provided. I didn't care for that in the transitional agricultural area. Is there any particular reason that was put in?
Well, the transitional agricultural areas are mainly identified around the communities itself. And so when development occurs, you'd love to see them hook up to, in my mind, as a planner, to hook them up to facilities, city water, city sewer, if it's available, and strongly, just like Dollar General. Push them, make them hook up. I mean, why keep them on septic, you know? So,
Yeah.
so that, you know, and you're right, not everything, you know, that statement there is more intended to those A2 zones around the cities. You have A2 elsewhere, don't get me wrong, up and down the river and everything else. So, you know, so.
I guess I just didn't feel comfortable with that as a blanket statement in transitional ag, and it really isn't in any of the others. Which I would expect it to be in commercial, I would expect it to be in urban residential, not the residential estate, but maybe in urban residential, commercial, industrial, those kinds of things. So I guess I just, something about encouraging annexation. I think if annexation happens, it happens. I don't know if I like that statement in here, because I'm hoping that this won't be used against us at some point.
This is all good. I mean,
Yeah. No, and
it's a good discussion to have.
but that's what I'm thinking of, how sometimes our comp plan gets used against us. Well, wait a minute, this is what you guys had in here, so this is what we have to do. So that's why I want to make sure we're very careful about what we put in there. And
Yeah, no, it's a good example. Yeah.
you know, a good attorney to look at it and say, like the instance we had out here with the new development on 420, you know, well, wait a minute, this is what's in your comp plan, you guys put this here, so we're going to run with this. And I just thought that one statement, encouraging annexation in transitional ag. Like I said, I would expect it in commercial, I would expect it in you know, the urban residential, but maybe not trans ag. Just because we have so much of that, we have so much of that transitional ag, so many areas in the county that can fall under that. So.
I guess I'd pull out of there the statement that is adjacent to the community. I'd lock that out. That's it.
It doesn't obviously how adjacent, you know, either. I mean, there's a lot of gray there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of great.
Yeah. And getting rid of, what did we just get rid of? We just got rid of that other map.
So then we'll get rid of the clump map.
the clump
Yeah,
map.
yeah.
That's what it reminded me of, was the clump, was how ambiguous. the
This,
clump
yeah, these
was.
would open to more interpretation. Yeah,
Yes,
I got you.
and-
Yeah, no, when you said that, I thought that.
I'll give him credit, good attorney. And that's why I can go through this, is like, let's try to close that door just a little bit. Not saying we can't open it up if we need to, but, that was one statement that.
Yeah, I would agree.
So I guess that's my question to you, Jeff, is that, are you expecting, do you want us to go through all of this and come up with,
No.
you know?
It's a whole
Please
different.
don't, please no.
No, it involves a lot of.
Already went through it.
It involves a lot of complication. You know, we're signing with this task. I mean, there's gonna be some stuff that comes out of it. Have to go in.
Yeah.
To support what we're doing here eventually. We'll go back. And if we have to write up a goal policy or objective and, for this, we will, to promote whatever it is, economic development or whatever it may be.
And you did have that in the urban residential, the last policy 5 on urban residential, about encouraging annexation when residential development is proposed. And again,
Well, I mean, well, it depends on where it's at. I think that's a loaded question. It depends on where it's at. If it's right by a city, I don't think you'd want to, and it's a 50 lot development, I don't think you want them all on septic. I'd rather see them all hooked up to the city. But for me personally, I'd rather see them all hooked up to sewer, But I mean, it depends on the location, a lot of factors. You're right, I mean,
sure,
you're
that's why
right.
I
I
don't
mean,
like the blanket statement.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for development and everything, if they want to be on septic and, but if there's an available way to hook up, or it's in close proximity, it's that, that can be worked out between the city and the developers.
Yeah, but to come right up in our
Hook 'em
comp plan and say, we're willing to give up tax dollars, I think is
Yeah, I see what you're
something we should
saying.
be careful about putting into the plan. I mean, if it, like I said, if it happens, it happens, and those conversations can happen down the road, because there are a lot of urban developments that we already have that, I mean, throughout the years that have been talked about, well, we might annex this one or that one. I just don't feel comfortable having that in here, where an attorney could say, well, it's in one of your policies. So we have to talk about it. So.
Anything else? Oh, yeah.
No, I'm just, like I said, just,
No. No, it's a good, it's a good conversation.
This is what I do. I sit
Yeah.
down and I just read it.
Yeah.
And I just.
Yeah.
Like that, I'd see the sticky note. But,
Yeah.
what's going on here?
Yeah.
Questions, I guess, to ask and stuff.
What page are you
I went under the mineral extraction.
on? Is there a page number?
It's page 10. I thought that policy number 2, protect significant mineral resource areas from encroachment by incompatible land uses. I thought that was just an interesting statement, and it made me think about all of our mineral extraction zones. And it made me think, are we having that? What would you consider encroachment by an incompatible use?
No, the dust, oh, man, I've been out there hiking next to those things, the dust that comes out of those
Okay.
pits and everything else is unbelievable. Yeah, so I mean,
But at the same time, the policy 4, to continue with collaboration efforts to plan and reuse mineral extracted areas that have been reclaimed. So then that changes that.
yeah, changes that, yeah. You want them to be reclaimed, you want them to have a
Sure.
reclamation plan. And I'm sure, I don't know how when I left, I don't think they had the HOV, that road.
Yeah.
That's probably all mined at one time, wasn't it? Or
Yes.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they reclaimed that and made a use
Yeah.
out of it, so that's. Yeah,
Not necessarily residential type thing being used as something.
Yeah.
Like you said,
Like-
residential, you don't want.
No, no.
I would-
Frames, which have to do.
No, because it's not,
Yeah.
Hard.
yeah,
But that was a great example of reclamation and being,
Yeah.
kind of being used for something nice and productive.
And it gets long.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
And it brings people in from other areas too, so it brings dollars into.
Yep. Oh, that's a win, yeah, win-win all the way around.
Do we think we see a lot of, I mean, we have our map with our areas on extraction zones. Do we think we see a lot of other areas being turned into mineral extraction? And this is a subject that I will come right out and say I know absolutely nothing about. Right, I mean,
No, for the mills.
So like, the mills, my mill, is we reclaim it, so we put good dirt back on, and we try to do like hay fields. But it's already undermined, there's not much you can.
No.
So you're just kind of,
But I mean, aren't there
You wanna
more mineral areas though, the mills to try and keep going? Aren't they pretty well?
we have more, there's still more under the ground. So the
Right,
stuff that's already undermined, which is they, long time ago, they went in there, there's tunnels through there, you can't do anything.
No.
You want to.
You wanna stay
So
away from
nothing could even be on that.
but what I'm thinking is like, is there more that's like to the
out that-
northeast
Yes.
of town that they're trying to?
are we ever going to see those boundaries change, those mineral extraction boundaries change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Purple.
Because that's,
There's rock under it.
Okay.
It has to be drilled and figured out.
Right.
I mean, we've already done all that. It's already done. It's just,
So it
they
is,
keep buying that from the farmers.
But years down the road, when they start to run out of what they had, they're gonna have to go off.
Right.
If it's gone.
so that changes our mineral extraction zone boundaries.
Yeah.
And if we already,
Most of
when you
it
talk about
should
encroachment,
already-
okay, that's what I don't,
They've done them tests. And
okay.
they know what's on it. They should at least.
so they've already been zoned?
Yes,
that
it should
then?
be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there
I
was
didn't-
some, I don't have the data in my office, because that's, you know. You look at these areas, they're big areas, so in my mind, yeah, they probably did some soil borings or whatever, the borings went down, thought, okay, there are minerals here. Yeah, which is great, so let's set this aside, preserve it, so to speak, for the generations to come. But,
And the reason I asked this question and the reason I have this flag is if you look at where that's at in conjunction with the city of Fort Dodge. And you talk about expansion, and I don't mean just expansion in the next 5, 10 years, I'm talking 50, 60, 100 years. Are we ever gonna see that purple boundary go further east?
That's what I wonder too, is it going to go, because that seems to be the direction that they're
It
going.
should, because that should be as far as they've already.
Okay. And I know when our current maps were made, when they first put the zoning into play in 2009, I think there was a lot of discussion with the mines as to what was already,
Those guys up in the northeast, they'll run out of rock within the next 10 years. That's just, that's all they have.
so I guess that's why those policies.
I think Fort Dodge is gonna run out of gypsum.
That's what I like.
It's like, eventually we will. There's not very many gypsum areas in the United States, here in Pennsylvania.
We're trying to do synthetic stuff, so we're trying to-
Yeah, it's a very rare mineral.
One of the things that they saw was using the mined out ground as storage for fresh water. Using it further down the road, once everything was mined out, to be able to use those for keeping freshwater areas, freshwater storage, that type of thing. Until I read it, I didn't know it.
I wondered if they were gonna try and use some of that for like cold storage, like they do like down in like Kansas City, you know, when they go down under and
Yeah.
use for cold storage. Yeah, because I figured that's all part of kind of like we were.
Some of the old stuff caves in.
Yeah, they're not sturdy. No, they're not sturdy.
It's not.
Like, this is, yeah, It's a lot. Gypsum won't hold up, it'll deteriorate,
It-
or just like wall.
It's just like, yeah,
It's
that's
gonna
why.
fall apart. I'm still. Maybe something like that would be for storage. There's a pond under it. It's full of water. Yeah.
You could essentially at some point dig it out, dam it up.
Somehow.
Make it a nice recreational
You're
area.
saying again,
Well, yeah.
same holes
Yeah.
there around.
Yeah.
There you
You're
go.
talking.
We can
about
have
in the mine.
the lake of Fort Dodge.
Yeah,
Or the
yeah,
lake of Webster.
yeah, all recreation.
I'd rather see that than somebody wants to come store nuclear waste or something.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
that.
Or just a dumping ground or something, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the dust here. No residential around. Yes.
Anyway.
You and Dennis Frank, both you guys. it could be,
It's gonna spring these to me.
You know, if he's, I mean, you want everybody to be a good steward of the land. I mean, you want, and, you know, and in Mr. Frank's case, you know, that was the thing is that, you know, I'm not looking at that ground right now. I'm not looking at it for 10 years. I'm looking at what happens in 50 years. You know, what happens when it's you guys as kids and grandkids, you know, because once that just gets destroyed, it's not coming back.
Should we ask the gypsum companies to come in sometime and say, what do you see in the future?
Yeah, because probably that's us over crap. And then the technology they use to probably bore holes were
Yeah,
just a drill down, okay, we're good.
yeah,
There's new ways to do it.
yeah.
That might
I think,
be a
yeah.
bad idea.
Take
To possibly do
We may find out that they want to expand even further,
Well,
which is not, I
that's
don't
what
know.
you know,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
by it's like, oh, are we sure we know everything about it?
Yeah.
When we're putting these policy statements in? And is there more that we need to know, more information we need to get before we make those policy statements?
When National opened it, we fit out northeast of town, they bought up some places.
Yeah, but then again, you look on the flip side of this thing, if there's a demand, the national, whoever, Georgia, whoever it is out there. They know there's minerals out here, they're gonna come in here and request. rezone.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, so, you know, it would be nice to know about it ahead of time, kinda, yeah, it would be. Yeah, but it'd be nice to know, hey.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, but then if you, let's say you had somebody just to the east of them that said, I want to come in
And do something.
and do a residential development.
Yeah.
Well, we've got policies here that are telling us one thing, but we've also got borings that are maybe gonna tell us something else. So, you know, how that will, I mean, and I know we can't plan for absolutely everything, but as a living, breathing document that changes all the time, what we're looking at here is from probably 2008,
2008,
I would say, 2008, 2007, 2008.
I mean, if anything was to come in there till tomorrow, let's say, I think. You know, just to make sure that, you know, what's going on there, so.
My next couple of sticky notes aren't too bad.
Typos? No kidding.
No, there were some typos, there were some typos in there. I just wanted, when you talk about the intergovernmental coordination, I tell you, I got to the back of this, and I will say this was after a glass of wine. I got to the back of this, yeah, got to the back of this document, and it just seemed like it just was repetitive. A lot of, you know, nowhere in the intergovernmental communications and public safety, emergency preparedness was Webster County Emergency Management.
Gotcha, yeah.
And adding Webster County Emergency Management, because we do have that now. We do have a really good resource with that. And I don't think we had that before. That one person that is really dedicated to that and being able to use him. Dylan, yeah. But you know, we got to I guess when I got to the end of this document, I started reading it as I would if I were looking to come bring a business here. And it just seemed like it just got just redundant. I mean, it was just rehashing and going over and a lot of the stuff in the back of it, like I said, I would like to see that down to 1 or 2 pages and just boom right through it.
Okay.
I don't think when it comes to the environmental, when it comes to the conservation and that, I don't think any of our goals have really changed that much.
No, they haven't.
But I think making it an easier, friendly thing to look at instead of 4 or 5 pages of goals that we all, I mean, it just, like I said, it just seemed like it just kind of kept going on and on and on.
Well, and I know that I saw in there too, that the Greater Fort Dodge Growth Alliance was brought up.
A couple times, yeah.
And it's like, have we actually talked with them? And it's like Kelly Paul said, I mean, she travels the world and talks to all these companies to bring them in to the Fort Dodge area. Maybe that's something we talk with her too. And it's like, okay, what are these companies wanting to know when she's going out and talking with them? What are they wanting to know about what Fort Dodge has and what our rules and laws are governing for bringing companies in? What are they looking for? Maybe there's something that we're not even seeing that they need. Things that we need to be aware of that they're looking at. Maybe there's things that we don't even know.
Know the questions that they're going to ask and give them the answers before they ask.
And
Yeah.
have it so it's
There's a lot
not
of.
buried into the 25th page.
You're right, there's a lot of incentives that are out there, besides tax incentives. I mean.
Yeah.
When you get big jurisdictions, there's expedited permitting, there's expedited site plan review, and
Right.
like, hey, you come in here with the plan, we're gonna get you in and out of here.
And I
A
mean, and
week
she
or
would
two,
know
then.
what,
Yeah.
I mean, she literally is all over the world bringing
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, those are all good points, strengthening our economic development aspect, and providing those resources to
I
people
feel
that
like
want to
I'm
come
really
in.
hammering at you, not hammering.
No, I know, you're not,
Because
no.
I know you put a lot of time.
But-
It is a lot of information. But under economic prosperity goal number 6, it's 3 paragraphs.
Yeah.
The goal is 3 paragraphs. Now, I can see the objective being that long, but the goal was so
Yeah, I think
muddy.
you're more precise.
It needs to be more precise. What is
Yeah.
our goal? Nobody's going to read 3 paragraphs to figure out a goal.
It's like me, I tend to get into run-on sentences.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
pull it out.
Yeah.
Just like, yep.
Yeah. I mean, and economic prosperity is a pretty universal, thing. It shouldn't be drawn out into 3 or 4 paragraphs. And you notice I have no sticky notes for the transportation area.
More precise, I think, there's one page.
That might have been the end of the. Yeah. But really, when you sit and when you count the future land uses and you count, the number of pages here and all this information is actually. I felt that this information actually was more difficult to get through than this information. Now, I don't know how this compares to that Story County plan. And I know when we talked with MSA, they talked about doing more pictures, graphs. You turn a page or you click a page on the computer, boom, there's economic goals, boom, there they are.
Yeah.
Not just like that.
Because big companies and big corporations coming from all over the world, they are not going to sit down and read. Granted, they're going to give it to their lawyers to read, but even
Their
so,
lawyer will go through it, yeah.
let's make it simple and easy.
In one sentence,
Welcoming that we want them here.
And hopefully with some public input on some of these, maybe, and I don't know who from the public is going to sit and pick through all this. Hopefully someone will. Maybe they'll have a different idea for, here's a different goal.
Yeah.
Here's a different this or
Yeah.
that. But our transportation one, it's considering this is what we're doing is transportation. I think the goal was good. I think it was, everything made sense.
Well, and not only that, not even just, it's not just like large corporations and companies from all over the world coming in. We want to make it also so it's simple and easy for just your greater common folk, common companies and people coming in there too. They're not going to have a bank of lawyers
No.
to go and read it.
Yep.
So make it simple and easy and not
Yeah.
complicated for them to come in.
Yep.
So,
That's a good point.
Bridges and redoing our bridges and that, it actually showed up someplace else other than in transportation, and I think it was, you know, I mean, that's where it should be, but I think it was also, it showed up in someplace else. But that's my point, is that I saw a lot of things showing up under a couple of different goals and a couple of different strategies, where I think it just could be streamlined to what do we really want. I mean, you know, like Verna says, nobody's gonna, they're gonna click the page, they're gonna go, I mean, you guys probably just read right through stuff online and go through it. Yeah. If you don't know all the information in a couple minutes, you're done. And it's easy to do that when you're online, because that's all you gotta do, because you just click, you look at this. I mean, yeah, we're probably the only people that are gonna ever sit down with a big document like this and spend, 20 minutes and process and going through it. Everybody else is gonna be online, and they're just gonna be, I don't wanna read that, I don't wanna read that. And,
but if you get something, just quick little bullet points and maybe
Yeah.
even just some graphics and showing all that, it's an easy read and it's an easy research. I like to do research. I don't like to read my research.
Well, can I just ask, if I didn't, could some of this stuff be turned into graphics to condense it down, or bullet points? I mean, yeah, I mean, so it's just, yeah, it's just,
I mean,
Yeah,
there's some things you've got to go further.
I think a lot of stuff that's here is really good, because obviously when you have a lawyer that's gonna pick you apart,
Yeah.
we have to get really specific.
And
And,
this all isn't code.
right.
It's just all, it's not code. So, I've seen it done, work, the top plan is the guy, I don't like to call it a guide, but what planner does is when they typically do a staff report, plan development or rezoning or with a site plan, they'll go back in and pull out certain goals, objectives, and policies that their petition is furthering or advancing or is consistent with, and or stuff that's, if you have a bad petition that's not consistent with it, you point that out. And that's your basis for recommending approval or not.
So maybe this is your
Yeah.
longer handbook or version, and then
Yeah.
online you've got more condensed.
It helps staff with their recommendation for approval petition. That's what I always look at. Yeah, it's your long-term goals and objectives and policies, and that's your maps of what, you want what your county will look like in the future, and the types of uses and so forth like that. But yeah.
the more information you have in here, that's a good point, Jeff. The more information you have in here, the more ammunition you get. If somebody does want to pick apart and want to.
Most people, the developers, they're not looking, a lot of them are looking at the comp plan. I'm gonna tell you, they're going right to the zoning where it's, how can I get this use in here? And then they'll look at the compatibility matrix to make sure the land use is appropriate. Okay, we got to do the land use. Yeah, if they can help make their argument, yeah, for that type of use or proposal, or, the development or whatever, maybe in a certain location. But there's some, it's very important though, because it does help, because every once in a while we'll get the use that comes in here, or someone will try to railroad it through and it's not compatible. And it's like, okay, we need some firepower here to, take this thing out, and so it works both ways,
Well, and that's why we map is so. Because of what you said. That's what.
Yeah.
Looking at that map, we're the ones that are drawing the lines. I mean, if we don't have the lines drawn, then it's on us. And if we don't have it drawn correctly, and like I said, I never felt that J.O. and Associates, they just blocked everything out. And if we don't have that drawn correctly, we can't fault somebody we're saying, no, wait a minute, your shading says this, I went through your comp plan, and it says I can do this, so, you know, that's kind of.
Yeah, if I can get back to our map, look at 10th Avenue North, it comes out purple in the north, and then it turns, there's a small yellow street right there. Then people just built a brand new house in there. And man, if I was Ben, yeah,
Oh,
bottom of 18, and I knew they were gonna expand the mine closer and possibly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I could see grandfather things in it, brand new town, you know, so we're allowing this. I would say we should, in the next.
Well, the mineral extraction zoning district does it all the construction.
You know, that was kind of the same thing.
I bet
Yeah, that's the
Ben
next
doesn't realize.
Well, there've been some people that have complained about their wells being shifted.
Yes,
Everything out, all kinds of crazy stuff out there, because of the blasting, whatever they do out there, so it's like.
Just.
Yes.
On the west side of the Dutch, here it is. There, you know, at one point in time, I mean, there was nothing out there, and now all those houses, all those fancy houses, and
Are they still blasting? Martin Marietta, do they still blast?
oh, yeah.
But even when you're underground, I mean, that's still shifting that ground out there, that I always wondered that too.
But when it came to building and going out there and building, all of those houses and dishes, I mean, there was some $5 houses out there.
Yeah.
Apparently, I mean, Martin Marietta had been there forever and ever. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I get that some people, and my father could never figure out, because that's where my dad grew up, was right there at Martin Marietta. And, you know, you could hear back in the day, the blasting and feel it and all that kind of thing. And it just surprised him that so many fancy houses, I mean, yeah, went right there, and it was built, because that was all field back in behind there, just open.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and obviously, I mean, the mines provide a lot of job opportunity.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Revenue. And, you know, so we don't want them
No, gosh, no, stop it.
to.
So build your houses a little bit further
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
I mean, well, because that was established, that was well established,
Yeah.
and that's why what you know, what he's saying here is that, yeah, making sure our lines are right, so we can stay, you know, this was
Yeah, I
set
think,
out
I think
here.
Jen worded that with them, you know, obviously. Sure. Like you said, don't. put them.
Yeah.
Some things are going
Looking at it.
The money for them.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
Yeah, you're down the road, you're gonna have a hole in his back.
Yeah.
Somebody built a house there in one area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
We put the house there. And it was bought, they just,
And that house was further away.
it's kind of, I think, she's moved. Just rattle the pictures of, the big blast everything.
Is that the
It's
one
not like every day right now.
with the long lane?
Right after the junkyard.
Far back behind there. And that big thing was right next to his house. We used to walk the east. And all the time I go back there, I never heard any west.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember when that came up with Jack, that he complained about it, it's like. Never a problem. But, you know, obviously he.
Changing gears a little bit, well, it's still development. So the Willow Ridge, I mean, you may have saw something. Yes, that's for sale. Somebody gave some phone calls on that. Well, don't know, you know, whatever's going to come to fruition, but I think a lot of people would have that. Single family residential.
So are they retaining the clubhouse from what?
Yeah, I think, yeah, my understanding the clubhouse would stay, but a lot of that golf course, at least 25% of it. And so forth, but.
That could make for some interesting construction on that.
Yeah, no, there was some, yeah, in terms of covered, you know, if something was to happen, I would do I mean, that's probably the best use for that land to be residential. I suspect that.
Yeah.
So,
How close does the floodplain, do you have a floodplain map?
yeah, floodplain map on that one.
I do not believe I do.
There were floods.
I'm kidding.
I'm waiting for them to revise the map to see if there's gonna be any changes, you know. I don't know, it's hard to say. I don't know. I'm not sure.
No. I know they were talking about it with that meeting.
I was talking about it with somebody the other day about. Somebody that's in conservation, that works for conservation, they were like, it is not about the dams, and I was like, okay.
But you know, that's a good point. How does that?
Well, that's, you know, that's the question. Yeah, the new map.
I would have to maybe change just some things, and then would change some of that stuff along the river.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, yeah,
Potentially rezone that.
I think you'll see some stuff go back in, some stuff come out. I mean,
Well, it's one thing to be in the drought situation that we are, but where you're taking those dams out, that's changed the river. And so that should in turn change floodplain areas from where they were first designated. Something else for you.
That's easy. I mean,
That's another day.
that's the engineers, the Army Corps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen their work on the river.
So those are just a few of my comments on this. I guess I'm not sure what did you want to see, Jeff, on this?
We need public input on this down the road. So,
Okay.
yeah, it was just something to talk about and discussion.
No, I think I obviously put a lot of time. Yeah, this took a lot of time. Yeah. I mean, I've probably been for months writing that up, but, yeah, I think you did a good job, so something to expand on.
Yeah. Thanks.
Do you have any more questions for us as far as?
No, I wanted to cover everything, and I try to keep you up to date of the projects and the petitions that come in, whether they come to you, you know. Oh, we do go to the Board of Adjustment, but you know what's going on with development.
How many times so far this year has the Board of Adjustment?
Last year, I think about it. Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
You don't want they should be meeting all the
Oh,
time.
they don't.
Well, I mean, the conditional use permits, yeah, those, it's very hard to qualify for a variance, you know.
Do you know where you can find out how often they meet?
It's on our website.
It's on our website that I update often. Look at the agenda's right here for you guys. Everything, agenda, packet, minutes. All you gotta do is just,
Board of Adjustment twice, so.
That's good.
that's because that's 2021 and then 2022. You see, they're different years.
Yeah,
So we're balancing.
Thanks.
once in 2021.
Get on.
I think the website is awesome. The gentleman I was talking to had their number, I told him, I said, it's all on the website. I said, when I first spoke with him, I thought he was from Webster.
I don't think I've ever really complimented you on that.
You haven't.
No, that's great transparency, so.
Yeah. I don't have your guys' contact information on the website.
We try to keep that. fun.
Yeah,
You don't
like
put
for-
that out there. If somebody's trying to contact you, we'll probably call and say,
Mhm.
somebody really wants to talk to you. It's like,
I appreciate it. They find it.
mhm. I mean, you guys are on here, especially for the, trying to get public engagement with the planning. We have a spot for that with everywhere that you could possibly give us input, so.
I've had some people, just because they know me, they know I'm on the board, they'll call me and ask questions and stuff. But I appreciate that you don't put it all on their website for the public.
I sure the drone footage of solar farm last time.
No.
Is that on there?
It is on here, see? I'm working on putting all the information on that when I have a day off.
Yeah, the drone.
When I have free time, yes.
This is complete. You can see the put the vegetation in between the solar panels for stability and motion control. There's the new substation right there.
There is music with it too.
And there is music.
Yeah, oh yeah, I added music to
This
it.
is looking west now. Just south of it.
Can you see it from the, what
You
I
really-
I call the
you
back?
really
No, you can't.
This is only like 2 minutes of footage, so just like.
This is done by a drone?
Yeah,
Cool, who's drone?
we're not at liberty to
EMS.
discuss that.
EMS will come around. Yeah, that's what we do.
I was like, somebody's pretty good with their drone.
Well, this is coming in handy too, just totally off subject. As a county, we're rebranding and redoing the website, so hopefully this and other aerial footage will.
That's the new substation that was put in.
You know, really, when you drive around it, you don't get a sense of it. So,
No.
No.
how big it is.
It's what, it's impressive when you're.
Yeah.
So what's wild is those sit on an axis, these things. Yeah. And they track the sun.
So I was just
Yeah,
gonna
it's-
ask you, are
Yeah.
they,
Yeah, so they go around and track.
that is to the east, that last there?
Yeah,
where
that's
we
not
could eat,
the east, you know.
and that's on the-
Eventually, I'll have all of the information about it, more than just it's over 1,000 acres.
And one thing that I've been kind of getting wind of is that there's people snooping around in this area again for a wind farm.
Really, a wind farm?
Another one?
I know, so,
I heard,
I know.
I heard,
And what area?
It's not on my. I think it's somewhere out here.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Even, well, at one time, they were looking at doing a joint project between Humboldt and Webster County too, up in this area here. I mean, it's all about the elevation, the topography and these windmills. And
Well, I will have
they've
to
been knocking
say,
on some farmers' doors around here.
I will have to say, God, it's not
Yeah.
tough. We've got.
I know, we can,
down there.
my feeling is we already have enough already, but. Oh, I know, it's like. I know.
Exactly. You don't keep any others.
I think Webster County's done their share of renewable wind or energy, you know what I mean? It's to the
Between
point-
Webster and Northern Green County, we're like surrounded. A lot.
yeah. What is the saturation point for our county?
I mean, they have the right to go through with, you know, the petition. And then, yeah, just their best interest, like they did with this solar farm, is they work things out with the farmers up front so that, yeah, there's no objection. I mean, but, so, I don't know,
They'd have-
to
they'd
me,
have to-
it's, I don't know,
They'd have to.
they kind of mar the landscape. That's what when I look at them, it's like, oh, you know. it's
Well,
like-
they're constant.
Yeah, they're very, what's that?
Yeah.
Oh, that too.
Projected.
Yeah.
That was
Creating the
Yeah.
improvement.
Yeah.
It's really not that much.
It actually is further off to the west, but that really makes us
Yeah.
go off to the east a little bit.
For crop insurance, I go
I
out
would,
and
I would think
Dan
that,
uses the ground
they'd have to keep
for
them
those
there.
amounts that come in. It's a lot of-
It's a lot of-
So they
Like,
can-
and you take the road
I've-
too.
But
Yeah, they get paid, there's a 20.
I know they're out there talking to people. I've heard some rumors.
The compactions.
I didn't think this was too bad up here in the northern part of the county or the Humboldt, you know, but when we got down to here, it's like,
Let me ask you this, they put something like that up in that area. Not that it's going to right now, but how does that impact if the airport were to ever expand?
well, yeah, it's a very good point. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, all of a sudden,
does that
yeah.
hem us in, does that make it so our airport doesn't get to expand?
Yep.
windmills.
Yep, exactly, we try to put in another runway or expanding approach.
Exactly.
Hey, that's.
I mean, at least solar farms,
I think they're ugly.
No,
I can, yeah, but at least they're not up and you don't.
Well, and when I'm out in the. I'm not in the-
Does anybody know if, coming?
so, you know, I mean,
It's, did they buy
Ours, we don't.
He's the one that was always at the meetings and Jeffrey and all that. Did they buy his property and or is he still there?
Can you pull
Bill
up
Brown.
your?
She's good.
I don't know about the overlay.
So like with that solar energy, none of that stays there in the state of Iowa either, just like the wind, right?
Yeah, it just goes out and it's still there, I mean,
That's why it's like, can we, I don't know, it'd be so
I don't know
fancy all of
about
it
that.
if we could keep
Yeah.
some of it. Gotta be here.
No, he's still there.
Yes. I just know he was very vocal with all of it. He wanted them to buy his property. That solar,
No Bitcoin mining farms. County.
it's amazing how many people are doing their own individual solar projects.
We, are getting.
There must be getting some incentive or something.
I'd like to know if there's some. It is really spendy, but if you're gonna get something back. Yeah, that would help, help offset that.
I mean, how many solar farms have we issued this year?
Up to you.
Really.
We've had quite a bit.
We'll give you our year-end report from January meeting, it's pretty. For permitting, it's done.
Well, I know that there's a
It'll be
dealer
ready by
right on
then.
175 between. Dayton. He's dealer, he set up like 2 rows. I can't remember how far. He's got right in his front yard. and
Sure,
he-
that's what's coming. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like,
Those have been it.
like 2 years maybe? Might be longer than that.
My issue with the windmills, if you've ever been in southwestern Minnesota. Those old style ones, and they are literally everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. I
They're
mean,
privately.
I don't know if they
think
are
so.
not. They are so unattractive.
I went and mapped some over there, they were tearing out some of the old ones and putting in the new style, but they're not required to tear out those old ones unless they wanna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that the way it is over? East of Webster City, north of East of Webster City. They got all these old ones. And they were just leaving because they don't have to turn them out. And so you just have that eyesore.
There's that
There's the overlay.
airport overlay,
Those cones, yeah.
but that's to the west. That's existing to the west for the airport overlay. Now, if you project that out, what we're talking about is airport overlay zone, if there was more windmills to go up in this area, whether or not that would hamper any expansion for our airports, you know, in the future. And I mean, you're not gonna go this way. You're not gonna go that way with the airport. The airport,
Yeah.
that's the direction for it to go, is that way. And if you look at this overlay right here, you take that overlay, that takes us out to the edge of the county. So if we need to keep that in mind, because that may or may not.
I would think they might even be able to come in because like with my drone license and stuff, I can't even be within 2 miles of the airport and it's restricted airspace.
Well,
So I would think
yeah,
there would be restrictions.
so, yeah,
Is
even
it the
when we
same
went, well, even when we went forth with that solar. We coordinated with the FAA and Roger.
Well, you can fly your drone around.
Same thing, Woodlands, you know,
I'll
make
talk to
sure-
you later. I need some,
That's what you're,
Yeah,
that's what you're seeing going in.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
plan.
All right. But there's actually studies out there that say that these solar panels are actually compatible with the airport usage too. I mean, just saying. I mean, that's why when that project came in right away, we wanted to make sure that they had FAA clearance. clearance and
Yeah,
Rhonda was okay, and she was, so.
and I can see them, you know, it's good for them for doing that, because if you think about it, they're really not any higher than any of the building.
No, it's just the
It's just
reflection.
the reflection
Yeah.
and sheer size of them, but when you start putting windmills up and you're starting to get into the only place that we had to go with a flight path for our airport to get any bigger, you know? I mean, like I said, you're not going north with it, you're not, certainly not going south with it. You're as far out west with your flight path as you can go on the county, and the only other place to go is to the northeast. So, I don't know. But I appreciate you keeping us updated on this. I say that as a joke, but I give you all these fun things to do. But this was a lot of good information, a lot of really good information. And I appreciate it. Sounds like everybody did read through it all and, you know, really gave it some thought. So that's good. Not disparaging anyone, but there were some past members that I don't think would have put the time. So I do appreciate that you guys did look at all that stuff. And like I said, it's just good to have all these other ideas. So Jeff, if you don't have anything else for us, and if you don't want anything from us, no, all right. I will ask for adjournment if someone would like to make a motion to adjourn. All righty, and do I have a second? All right, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.
We will have a December meeting, so. Regular schedule meeting.
Regular schedule. It threw me off. I was hoping.
Yeah,